بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. شكرا لكم بحضوركم هذا اللقاء المتجدد من ليدرز مايك، وشكرا لضيفنا اليوم عبد الرحمن الجفري اللي نبغى نكتشف أشياء كثير في شخصية عبد الرحمن الجفري.
إن شاء الله ما تندم يعني بس.
الله يسعدك. لا أكيد ما في ندم. كيف حالك؟
الحمد لله بخير.
شرفتنا ونورتنا. شكرا لك على وقتك، شكرا لك على إعطائنا هذه الحلقة، وجلستنا معاك إن شاء الله راح تكون ثرية. طيب، حابدأ كالعادة بالسؤال الأول، ونبغى نتعرف على عبد الرحمن جفري the person. Who is عبد الرحمن جفري the person؟
عبد الرحمن الجفري the person شخص مفروض ما يتكلم بالثيرد person عشان حياخذ كثير من الوقت. بس to sum it up, I'm a middle child, an extreme middle child, one of 5 brothers, no sisters, zero delicacy, you can blame that. You feel like a responsible person, so I would say you're like an older brother energy, Ziad. I'm not sure if I have that right or لا. But anybody who has a middle child, brother or sister knows إنه في mischief. That's something that I've had. Curiosity and mischief and enjoyment is something I've prized my entire life. I try to bring it into everything I do. And proud father of a 5-year-old, enjoying those years as much as possible. And somebody who's been involved في عالم التك والinvesting والventure for the good 15 years of my life. Something that I continue to enjoy and never regret a single moment of.
Hobbies?
Hobbies. Gaming early عشان كنا 5 أخوان, 5 brothers, and if that didn't keep us كده aligned, we would have probably killed each other. Other than يعني copying the WWE and everything else. Love reading, love researching. Now getting more back into physical fitness. COVID يعني took its toll. Now I'm getting back into a rhythm. I've put that goal since December, and alhamdulillah I'm sticking to it. That's taking up a lot of time. And whatever strikes my fancy. I think after this health kick, I'll probably try to take up jump roping. It's a skill I've never managed to do right, and I want to fix it this year.
Great. Wish you all the best.
Inshallah.
طيب, Abdulrahman, tell us a little bit about كمان your career path. From where did you start until today?
Very accidental. I can't say anything was premeditated. A lot of fun, fortuitous events happened that led me down this path. And whatever كل شيء انتقدته, I ended up doing. So, أول ما دخلت, my dad is an engineer, and he still is a major inspiration to me. يعني, and he's an engineer's engineer, like Berkeley, IBM, يعني كده. Really instilled that mindset. The plan was to kind of pursue that path. هو كان electrical engineering قبل ما ياخذ الدكتوراه وشالنا على the UK. And I remember يعني industrial engineering had become somewhat relatively يعني new في الجامعة, and I thought, you know what, let me look into it. But when I joined industrial engineering a year before, I remember telling somebody, oh, that's not real engineering. And whatever I criticize, I end up doing. If you asked me على what area I would be in, I would have never predicted I'd be on the business side of things. I always thought business is boring. Yeah, numbers, charts, it takes the soul out of stuff. But ultimately, I ended up, after graduating, I worked in Prince Sultan College. It was a new college. I remember the vice dean who hired me, قال لي, like, you're not going to stay here long. You're going to do a lot, but within a year, you're going to leave. And within 8 months, I did end up joining KAUST. KAUST was an incredible environment. يعني, all these researchers, this was 2011, so لسه عتوبة about the university, all the science, all the labs, all the facilities. It was such a blank slate that was an amazing opportunity to kind of go and evolve. I stayed 12 years in KAUST. Never anticipated I would stay that long. And after that, during that, I ended up joining the board of Uqal, being more active as an angel, and then joined 500 Global as a partner في VC firm حقهم, which is also interesting because you get to meet all these funds Like 500 Global has a fund in the US, we have a fund for Southeast Asia, there's a fund for Mexico, there's a fund in emerging Europe. So you get to see all these different business models and regions, how they interplay and how they change. That's another كده joy of continuous learning اللي feeds my curiosity.
MashaAllah. And today?
Today, a partner 500 Global. So I've always worked in the early stage, still loving the early stage side of stuff. So pre-seed to seed to pre-A. Once the founder is raising an A round, I'm like, you know what, خلاص. This is too far beyond the stage that I like in, that I can help in, that I can add value in. So this is our third fund دحين في الريجن. I joined 2 years ago. Feels longer and shorter. Like I feel like I've always been part of the team for some reason, but also the time catches up when you're looking at the deals and how many years you've done that deal and where has it gone. I think it's been the industry that's rewarded curiosity and optimism the most, and always encouraging debate. I love debating people. I need disagreement. Everybody's aligned, everybody's like, yeah, that's great. I feel like, okay, we're all kind of prioritizing unity أكتر من the right decision. And I can't make a decision, even if I know I want to do this. أحتاج أحد to tell me, no, you shouldn't. I need to debate them to feel comfortable in that choice. So this is a field that at least rewards debate among partners when we're selecting a company, we're selecting a product, why it will work, why it won't work. So getting to do that day to day has been a blessing.
MashaAllah. Great. طيب, Abdulrahman, what shaped you as a leader today, يعني, during your journey until today? What do you think الشيء shaped you as a leader?
I think somebody asked me, what's your leadership style? I'm not used to these questions. And I said, I'm a benign dictator. I tell people what to do, but they don't listen. I like, and I know this is the environment that works best for me, small, super efficient, super effective teams that punch above their weight classes. Those are the kinds of teams where I thrive. Those are the kinds of teams I love, where my job is to empower them, support them. If I'm angry at them, it's because they didn't fulfill their potential. It's not that they did something to me, it's that they sold themselves short. Very rarely has that ever happened. I think I can think of 1 or 2 times through the past decade and a half where that's actually happened. But I've been blessed to be around some really incredible, self-driven, self-starting people that I always say, like, if I can't see myself reporting to you one day, then I shouldn't have hired you. Like, you need to have that potential. You can't say, I'm going to be Abdulrahman. No, like, you need to aim so much higher. And that should be your base aspiration. And hopefully then I'll be proud to have worked with you.
So, okay, you answered a different side of that question.
Okay.
يعني, but I need to see, is there anything in your experience that موقف whatsoever shaped you as a leader, يعني خلاك أنت you know what, I'm a leader, ولا حطك in a situation where you had to lead? So
I think what I'm being blessed and cursed by is I've always been in very fluid and uncertain environments. The day I joined Kaus, there was no program, entrepreneurship center, there was nothing. It was all kind of open-ended. So we had to drive decisions. Do this. Nobody told us. There wasn't a top-down directive as this must be done. We had to figure out what should be done. We had to start doing it. We had to then find resources to do more of it, get funding externally, launched our first accelerators, then get external funding من تكامل to run our regional programs, and then get support من SAB برضو to launch تقدم, which is then kind of grown on. So every single step of the way, nobody said go right, go left. And that conviction of this decision is something that I bought into and I'm driving. It gives you a sense of ownership very early. So that's why the biggest challenge is if I don't feel somebody has an ownership or understands why a decision is being made, then it's scary. It's like, why don't you believe in this? This is what we all kind of discussed. So I think that chaos was helpful. I saw a lot of people who did not enjoy it. It's not the environment they like, which I respect. I don't think there's one unified culture تشتغل لكل الentities. I think some entities need command and control. I think some entities need to be rigid. I think some entities need to be a bit more fluid. Instead, what we get is somebody says, everybody should be innovative and you guys should have foosball tables. Like, no, that's not how it works. Different organizations, different cultures, different breeds.
Okay. طيب, then Abdulrahman, mashallah, in this journey, if we want to say Abdulrahman as a leader can help us in anything, and if we want to go to Abdulrahman, Abdulrahman, please help us in something, that would be what?
Well, first, Abdulrahman is honored to help any of the Misk leaders. I've met some incredible people, a lot who are very entrepreneurial. I think I've met, just in cohort five leaders who are preparing to leave their corporate gigs to start their own companies, some who have already taken those steps. A founder typically goes through their journey once, twice, 3 times in their lives. On the venture capital side, we see the beginnings many times. So we can help in a lot of those rare inflection points. The first product, the first launch, the first key hires, the first rounds, 1, 2, 3, how to kind of navigate them, negotiate them, if the idea makes sense, if the strategy makes sense. So that's one core thing that I can definitely add value to, because I've seen a lot of companies and I have incredible FOMO. Like if there's a startup I haven't seen, I get really irritated as to how come I couldn't see it, because I try to be present and try to be easily accessible by founders. That's needed early. They don't look clean, they don't look shiny, they haven't won awards yet. So I need to be easy for them to access. The other thing is, if anybody's building a product, one thing I do focus on with founders, one session I do give quite a bit, is defensibility. How to make a product that is not easy to replicate. What are the fundamentals of a model that cannot be recreated so easily? A lot of founders think that they know the answer, but they shouldn't, because this is a company sometimes that was started 3 months ago by 2 guys and a cat. And it is impossible to build something purely defensible and hard to replicate, because you did build it in 3 months. But they're focusing on the wrong time scale. So I help them think, okay, you're building these moats. What are they going to look like, these walls, in the future? And how is it going to continue to entrench? And how is it built into the existing model? So those are a few things that I have very strong opinions that I love to debate and be a sparring partner to founders as they're preparing to meet much meaner people than me.
That takes me to another ask, I would say. So are you willing to give us as leaders كذا a quick 40 minutes ولا 35 minutes session online حتى, just to give us كذا an overview على موضوع الانفستمنتس, على موضوع
Would love to. I like to structure these things, so I do call outs. If it's online, I will randomly call whoever. I typically pick on people who don't have their cameras on. Fulan, what do you think? Because I do get smarter with each debate, with every single person I talk to. When they challenge me, it helps me refine my thinking. That's the value of doing sessions like this. That's why I enjoy doing it. And founders are the most filter-off people in the world. So if they think I said something not very smart, they will definitely tell me. And I enjoy that back and forth.
طيب, then هذا نعتبره promise.
خلاص.
We'll arrange for it.
Done.
طيب. Let's go back to Misk Leaders Program, 2030 Leaders. What did actually this program add to you?
So I've been in startups and venture capital for 15 years. And you meet a very specific ecosystem within those circles. I think the biggest value I had with Misk was meeting people from all different walks of life, different strategies, different entities, different backgrounds. I think if I'm stuck in that same bubble, it really limits my thinking. And being challenged by people who, think startups are a waste of time, I'd love to debate that person. I'd love to understand how their mind thinks. Maybe through that understanding, I can unlock, like, what is it that makes them wary? Has he had a bad experience? And how can we leverage that when I have founders who are selling to enterprise, to customers like that person? So meeting those incredible leaders in the worlds of sustainability, in art, in food, in everything was very fulfilling. And being forced to do the challenge, being the one giving the pitch instead of the one receiving the pitch, was also fun and helped me sharpen my thinking.
طيب, advices كذا you can give it لينا, لأنه again startups, a lot of us مثلا كمان the leaders sometimes بيكون عنده new ideas وكذا and he jump into يلا let's execute it ويبدأ يشتغل عليها. From your experience in that domain, لو تبغى تنصح أحد من الليدرز اليوم تنصحه بإيش؟ To watch out من إيش اللي المفروض يصير؟
I think the biggest thing I've noticed from leaders is a lot of them are perfectionists and they have a tendency to overanalyze before they start. So for most of them, I would say start small. Don't make it perfect. Don't make it fancy. I don't want to see a vision. I don't want to see a mission. I just want to see an experiment. Allow yourself to be messy. It's like taking a newborn baby and only dressing them in a thob shmagh. You're not a newborn. Inshallah, Brandship is incredible, yeah. But we shouldn't try to formalize and make everything rigid from day one. It's because that's what we're used to. The joy of the first steps are how messy it is and how unpredictable they are. And if we allow ourselves to do that, if we don't allow ourselves to do it, we rob ourselves of that joy. So that curiosity, that willingness to experiment is super valuable. And it will be more useful than talking to 1,000,001 experts. And whenever a founder tells me, do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this is a good market? I have my opinions. But if I'm investing in you, it's because I think you're smarter than me in this market. If I think I know more than you in your industry, I would start the company myself. I shouldn't be investing in you. That self-belief is going to be super important. Amongst female founders, I think there's a tendency to be overly accommodating, not debating enough. So I think with negotiating terms, there's a few exceptions, but a lot of female founders these are the terms, okay. It's like, no, you can have a back and forth. You can debate. And those are the two most common situations I kind of start seeing myself repeating. But obviously, most founders who ask me for general advice, I say, don't ask VCs for advice. They give terrible advice. You as a founder are more equipped. I will respect your opinion more. I will only try to be a sparring partner to sharpen your thinking. If I challenge you and you don't have an answer, I want you to come back and think about it. I don't want you to follow my orders. That's the worst kind of relationship that we can have.
So what about funds? دائما in startups, number one issue is fund.
Of course, because a lot of them think that all funds are the same, all funding is identical. No, there's different kinds of money for different kinds of expectations, for different kinds of businesses. A lot of time I'm sitting with the founder, I'm like, you've got an amazing business. This will grow steadily 20, 30% year on year. You're going to have an amazing lifestyle. If you bring venture capital into this, you will be damaging your outcomes. This is bad for you.
Wow.
Because your company is not going to be, venture capital will drive you to take higher risks. This is a market that might not support it. So unless you really want this path of grow fast, breakneck speed, raise, if you're not ready for it, then you're going on the wrong track. You're misaligning incentives with your investors. If you are ready for it, you know what this takes. Great, we're aligned. But most founders, most companies aren't built for venture. So once they realize, I don't have to do it. A lot of them why are you raising? this other company raised. I saw this article. It seems to be what everybody does. So they just ask for money. And it's always helpful to start with why and understand, are you just following the path? I would love to invest in a great company, but I want to make sure that we're aligned 2-3 years from now.
Hello. One last but new question to Reader's Mic. Name a person that you admire and why?
Oh, that's an easy one. My father. So I think early on, I was a people pleaser. I wanted people to respect what I said. I wanted people to be impressed with what I said. I wanted to appear smart in front of people. But the thing I always remember with my father is that he is one of the most blunt and direct people you will see. And as a result, when there's a debate, when he speaks, people will assume it's 100% true because they've never seen him put on airs. He's challenged people in some of the most direct and ways that I felt like I couldn't even look at the situation. And I've seen him be humble to ask like an 8-year-old for directions and like really pay attention. So he doesn't care about age, doesn't care about all this stuff. He's just very, very upfront. And I always try to remind myself of that habit.
طيب. Thank you, Abdulrahman. Very interesting. And I would like to open the mic for questions. Inshallah. يلا تفضل.
MashaAllah, very impressive journey. And I've learned from Abdulrahman in previous sessions. Abdulrahman, when you judge character of founders, what is the one character you don't compromise on?
So one thing that I've learned to value more is consistency. So I used to say ethics, but ethics are very clear. So a lot of times now, I'll have spoken to founders over the years 5 to 10 times. And I can see like, oh, they spoke to me first 3 years ago. This was their deck, this was their ask, this is what they said they were doing. And I can compare those numbers to the next year, to the next year, to the next year. I can compare what they said, I can compare the deck. And when I find that the history has been altered, and I find that admitting things didn't go perfectly is fine. But when I find that there's a lot of embellishments or some embellishments, it makes me nervous on edge. And that's turned me away from a couple of deals recently where everything else looked amazing. But the moment I got that suspicion, like there was one of the companies who had one of our own portfolio startups in their customers list. And I call, I'm like, hey, how's the product? Like, no, we've met them once. We've never used them. We think they're expensive, not planning to use them. Khalas. End of story. So that tends to rank really highly.
Being in VCs, I know a VC which turned Marsul out. So do you have some story where, with all your experience, you said that this will not work and then it flied? And the other way, you just approved it for a hunch and you said it looks nice, but it didn't add up really on paper and it really flew?
All right. So every investor should have those stories. You will never capture everything. It's something that will haunt every investor as what if this is the next one? What if this is the next one? What if this is the next one? The dark horse story of a company that I did not expect to succeed but ended up succeeding comes to mind most recently is Barakah. So Barakah, for those that aren't familiar, gives surplus foods from coffee shops and restaurants and sells it at a much better rate so that there's less food waste, there's more pickups, more people going to places. Now, the moment I heard that, I love the team. But when I heard that, I'm like, operationally, this sounds like a nightmare. You're dealing with F&B, you've got all these logistics, the turnover is really high. And will these good brands be willing to do this? Like, it just felt so tricky. And I was just begging internally for this team to pivot to something else. But ended up succeeding, being one of our top performers in the fund with that same model. Now, did they know exactly how this would go? I don't know. But that's the joy of it. What ended up happening, and the reason Baraka turned out to be such a roaring success in my perspective, is it wasn't about selling the food. I was being too short-sighted, but the customer behavior, most customers on Baraka visit the actual restaurant to pick it up. 80% of them, when they go pick up their order at like 60, 70% off, they buy something else. So if I look at it as just a marketplace, I've only seen a very myopic view. What it actually is they've converted inventory into marketing dollars, into people actually coming to your store to pick something up, meet you, see your product. And this is inventory that would have been thrown away. And when you think of it as a marketing technology, like, oh, okay, this is another dimension that I haven't thought of. And the product will continue to evolve, and that's an incredible team that really managed to outdo themselves.
بالبركة.
بالبركة.
So it's more about believing than knowing. And I think in entrepreneurship,
in early stages, yes.
No one ever knows, but it's more believing what it will reach to than knowing that it will really reach.
If it's early stage, yes. So if I'm making a deal in a pre-seed company, they just started, yes, I can make a judgment bet on the team. But if this is a company that's been out there, has customers, I need to believe in the product in order to make an investment, because the odds of like making a complete 180 change is very difficult at that phase of the life cycle.
Abdulrahman, يعطيك العافية.
الله يعافيك.
Beautiful journey, very interesting. I have two questions for you, a personal one and a professional one. I'll start with the personal. So you have now, throughout your experience with Kaust and then with 500 Global, you've dealt with all of these startups. And I don't know if you've personally ever started a business yourself. And if yes, tell us a story about it. If no, do you see yourself starting your own business as well?
Okay, I'm not sure if this is personal or professional, but I'll try to tackle. So there are people who kind of wear the title of serial entrepreneur. I had somebody come in and say, oh, I've started 7 companies. And what he's actually done is he printed 7 business cards, really. And each one of them was like a CEO title, and he decided to name it a company. I don't take that title lightly. I've had one experiment that did not pan out. I was trying to start a company in the algae business. It was making paper and filters, cigarette filters, and other kinds of materials from algae, from red algae that can grow very well in the Red Sea. So I'd worked in that, secured some funding for it, but ultimately getting access to land in the Red Sea and the regulatory red tape proved to be too difficult. It was a good humbling lesson, because I felt like, you know what, I've been doing this for years. I've got access to capital. I know all this stuff. I'll have such an advantage. But then when I dealt with the red tape, I noticed that this is not easy, and it was a good humbling lesson. I don't like to talk about it too much. I don't like to call myself a founder, because to me, like, I'll need to hire 50 people and fire a bunch of people and go through that journey to really be willing to call myself an entrepreneur. Whether I do it, I definitely do fall in love with ideas every now and then. I definitely do kind of get the itch. I think the curse I have is my job is too fun and gratifying. Like just dealing with these founders, and it's so enjoyable. It's so rewarding that it's tough to kind of walk away from being exposed to all these ideas.
Mm-hmm. So on another level, professionally, as an entrepreneur, I tend to have new ideas, but evolved in my core. So if I'm starting something new, I'm not starting a new business per se, like a new CR. So it's the VC world and the investment world do not consider it a startup, because it's within, it's like a department if you want,
yeah.
right? But it could be a totally different service.
Yeah.
I look at it as a startup. VCs see it differently.
Yes.
What would be the best scenario to tackle such a situation?
So, as a VC, like your job of asking for money is brutal. Like getting money from LPs is very tricky. And making sure that you've got multiple funds with multiple LPs, being consistent, being reliable with the strategy is something really important. As a result, there are some things that we don't innovate in. There's some things we just try to keep as simple as possible. Company formation, commitments, everything needs to be aligned. If I'm investing in you, I'm basically giving you money because I'm buying your time. I want the most valuable thing in the startup is the founder time. So your time is going to be the most valuable thing for this company to succeed. And that's why I'm trying to invest, because that allows you the freedom to do this while not having to worry about bills and schools and everything else. When this is a department within a company, then that essentially means there are other departments within that company and there are other things vying for your time. And the main thing I've purchased is not there. So that's why there's a schism that falls. I'm buying this because I want you all in on this thing. If you have a parachute, then this is more of a lifestyle thing that you want to experiment with, then experiment with it. I can't be the R&D funding. There are other programs that are good for this. So you've got Next Era, you've got RDIA now starting that are helping give grants to entities in Saudi to drive more innovation, to do more product development. That I think is amazing because it allows companies to be more innovative without forcing them to go down the venture capital path. Then, we're no longer in the situation where you're like, okay, I can't innovate, but I also can't do this. Finally, we've got more avenues.
I have so many questions, but I'll stick to two. One is, so in the world of startups, you have lots of short-term pressures and long-term visions. So how do you balance both when you make a strategic decision for a company?
So short-term realism versus long-term crazy is a really great combination. As a founder, you have to pay the bills. And if you have enough bills being paid, then you can kind of take a couple of big swings. If investors think that you're too focused on the paying the bills part, falling into too many one-off consulting projects, it will scare them. Because they're like, okay, but where's the big thing? Where's the exciting thing that these guys are dreaming up? If they think that you are unable to manage the short-term pressures, maybe you have somebody who's like a good CFO, a good COO who can kind of keep the lights on, then that's great. You've got a good pairing. But it always needs to be both. And the most disruptive thing, so I was just talking to a founder today, and he's raising, and he's got good interest. But he was worried, like, maybe I can increase my cap, maybe I can increase my valuation. I'm like, okay, you're optimizing the wrong thing. You are deciding to spend an extra 3 months fundraising when you could just close the round now and focus on building this thing. You are looking as the value of the company. You're not looking at the value of your time, an extra 3 months being wasted. So when founders short-term focus on survival, long-term kind of tee up those big swings, then they've got something special.
Interesting, thank you. طيب, I want to ask you this. So if someone is talking about you behind your back, what would you like them to say? As in, how would they describe you? So that's like the everlasting legacy you leave in people's minds.
Abdulrahman was almost rude, but wasn't. And gave me the information I needed with as minimal varnish to make it digestible. That's what I try to be. Blunt. Yeah, I try to be blunt, but not rude. Like, it's such a delicate balance from person to person. Like in KAUST, I'm dealing with PhDs and academics who are globally renowned. So it's tricky to also say, like, I know your budget is like a fraction of this funding that I can give you. Like, sorry, my funding is a fraction of your overall budget, but I'm still gonna hold you to account to this thing, because ultimately, if you're serious about starting a company, to do this. And if the ego gets in the way, I can't help. I try to be nice. I try to be polite. I try to take an interest in the tech and read about it so that when I talk to them, they feel like I kind of understand what they're saying. They do respect that. But as long as I'm a good mirror to reality, then I've done them a service, because too many people just give applause, great job, yeah, you're gonna be successful, you're gonna be the next big thing. And they lead a founder to waste years of their time and frustration.
MashaAllah, impressive journey. I'm very interested in VCs, so yani, bear with me.
Okay.
Okay. So one question is, have you always seen yourself doing what you're doing now?
No, never. Like if you asked me, would you be investing in companies? My older brother, chemical engineering, but he was into stocks from day one. He was in reading performers, he was into it. I always thought all this money stuff is soulless. It's boring. I hate it. And everything that I end up criticizing, I end up doing. So be careful of what you make fun of. I am so concerned that I'm going to suddenly become a TikTok influencer because of how much I've made fun of that profession.
But then, like, how did you decide, no, this is your thing and you're going to pursue it?
It was a series of things. So I had a good friend of mine who was part of the first team that was working in KAUST. And my plan was going to be the standard plan of go get a master's in, at the time I was planning for UCSD, continue engineering, be an academic, kind of follow what my dad did. I joined KAUST and I met Dr. Abdullah there. I loved the institution. He said, like, this place is great. You're a geek, Abdulrahman, this place is great for you. You'll have fun. And it was such a playground of crazy people who were moving from all over the world to do research in a new institution that had just been built. So it was full of crazies that you could learn from, each with their strong opinions. That got me interested into this kind of pace. Then it became the challenge of how do we make sure that this actually has an impact? And it led into commercialization, it led into starting a program. The problem is, if I started a program and I had an accelerator and it was filled with only PhDs, no offense to PhDs, but they have a different perception of time. It would be a bit boring. You need your cohort to be heterogeneous. My father is a PhD, so just so you know. But you need a mix of people. You need people just starting, you need people who have businesses, you need people who have research. You need an intermix of it to make something special. So that's why we started branching out, started doing more stuff in Jeddah, more stuff in Riyadh, more regional. And then once I've done that for 3 years, expanded that, allowing for international companies that are expanding to Saudi. Each phase kind of growing that. And then I realized, holy crap, I'm hooked. I'm addicted to this. Yeah.
Nice. طيب, other than Barakah that you missed on,
no, we did invest in Barakah.
We
did, but I did not expect it to be successful. This was a dark horse that I always tell founders, I don't believe in the idea. You're going to have to prove me wrong. They proved me wrong. And I willingly admit it in front of the whole world.
طيب, what other success stories or like what يعني highest multiples you did, if you can share يعني?
It's a bit like the fund I'm in now was just closed this year. So it started deploying in 24. So not this year, last year. I'm still adapting to the 24. So that one is still relatively new. We have one exit out of that one that did a really quick return. So hopefully we'll see more good outcomes. The one prior to that, there's a couple of strong notable names. Ijari is doing really well, even though like they were the second or third company in that class, but that type of founder was the right founder to build the company. So really proud of them. Sweater is doing really well. Like whenever I tell somebody like, oh, what models are working here? They're like, car wash, really? It's like, well, I wish you could see the numbers. They're doing really well. So there's a couple of strong winners. If you go to the first fund for 500 in the region, it had a couple of other strong notable names. Callow is there, Gatherin is there, Flowered is there. So you've got a couple of good winners there. but it was a very, very early into the ecosystem also. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
To be continued.
Inshallah.
Any other question? تفضلي.
Oh, this will be the tough one.
No, I'm just interested to hear a little bit more about Saudi specifically, and how do you think the Saudi market in this field is unique?
So what we're seeing now is those that prioritize Saudi. So if you went back in time 3 years ago, what would have been obvious, what would have been the core consensus among the investors would have been, you know what, you should invest in a company in Egypt because valuations are lower and tech team is there and everything's there, and they'll expand to Saudi and you'll make more money that way. There was that arbitrage. That hasn't panned out. Turns out the ones that prioritize Saudi did really well. The ones that dominate this market tend to outperform those that don't. And you're seeing founders react to that. When I see a founder in Jordan, when I see a founder in Egypt, when I see a founder in Bahrain, they're not saying, I want to prove myself in my market for a year or two and then expand to Saudi. No. They're saying, I want to expand to Saudi now. That's the only reason I'm talking to you, an investor, because I want to access this market, and working with you is going to help me get there faster. So people have reacted. Whereas a long time ago, like when we saw the early stories that are now seen as amazing, Uniphonic, etc., those days, it wasn't so obvious. So this is the market, and I think it's for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think the consumer side is obvious, like very digital, very tech savvy, willing to adopt new products. So I think that is clear. What is less talked about is enterprise. So when we look at enterprise, you're seeing a bunch of companies that are looking for new solutions, that want to stand out, that are willing to experiment. This is something we take for granted, but if you go to other markets, you realize it is really, really tough to sell some of these corporates. But here, I had a founder tell me, like, it is 10 times easier and quicker to go through a sales cycle in Saudi than it is to do one in Amman. And the size of the cycle, the size of the contract is bigger, everything is bigger. But he's like, I can't believe I wasted all that time. And the ones that struggle the most with this are the ones, for example, in Egypt, because they see the cost of Saudi is so much higher. So they sometimes drag their feet. But the ones who actually come here and do it full force, they realize that lesson a lot faster. Like, oh, I was way too cautious. I was too careful. Like, oh, I can hire one person selling in Saudi versus 10 people who are coding. It's worth it. It is definitely worth it.
Interesting. طيب عبد الرحمن حقيقة thank you so much.
No, thank
الحديث معك لا يمل. It was great to actually have you today. Great information, insights. Thank you so much, and yalla, looking forward for your next venture.
Inshallah. No, I mean, I always thank you guys.